thumbs up when we're ready to go? Oh, we're good. Okay, wonderful. Oh. Good evening. Today is Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. This is the Litchfield Elementary School District Governing Board meeting. This meeting is hereby called to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let's jump in and get started. Thank you for those of us joining us here today. We're going to start first with our conscious discipline brain smart start. We're going to do that with Mrs. Megan Duplain, our meeting message and our relaxation activity.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Gunning. I'm going to start with our daily message or our meeting message, and it is resilience is all about being able to overcome the unexpected. The goal of resilience isn't to just survive, but thrive. So we're doing a lot of surviving right now, and our administrative team, we're talking about let's work some thriving in there as well. So today I'd like to ask your commitment to look at your work week and make sure it includes many things that'll help you thrive. So if you can commit to that, give me a thumbs up. All right, thank you.
Okay, on to our recognitions and celebrations with Mrs. Shelley Hornback.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, President Clymer, members of the board, Superintendent Gunning. Thank you for this opportunity to always open our governing board meetings with celebrations and recognitions of important things that are happening in our district. We know with great certainty that success in any situation is dependent on strong leadership. In addition to the outstanding community support that we have earned for over a century, our rich history of educational excellence is in great part due to the commitment and expertise of our leaders. Tonight, we celebrate some of our brightest stars, some of our most committed leaders who work hard every single day to ensure that our students thrive at school and in life. Tonight's celebration begins with our governing board. So the role of a governing board member is a demanding one, clearly, especially in these tough times. It's a volunteer position that takes much time and energy and has a very steep learning curve. We partner with the Arizona School Board Association to ensure that our school board members are well prepared for their important role. So the Arizona School Board Association will host its Maricopa County meeting on Monday, and we are delighted to have 3 school board members who will be recognized at that time for their impressive commitment to professional development. So please join me tonight in congratulating Mr. Jeremy Honak. He will be receiving a certificate of orientation. Ms. Kimberly Moran, who will be recognized with a certificate of boardsmanship. And Ms. Melissa Zaidama, who will be recognized with a Master of Boardsmanship. Thank you so much for your hard work. Please come down and join Superintendent Gunning for a photograph so that we may celebrate this achievement.
Yes.
Superintendent Gunning has some certificate for you to hold. We're going to celebrate your success. Thank you so much for this.
I'm going to stand over here so I'm not right behind you guys.
Okay, thank you. There we are, all together on 1, 2, and 3, and one more on 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much. Please join us in applause for our board members. Thank you for your commitment to our staff and our students. We're grateful. We have more celebrations tonight. We want to pause this evening to celebrate some of our principals who've been recently recognized as exceptional school leaders by Maricopa County School Superintendent Steve Watson. Let's begin with Mr. Jenke, Luke Jenke of Verado Elementary School, an A-rated school, an A+ school of excellence. Mr. Jenke mentors our other principals, and he rules the school with calm confidence with his superstars. So we're grateful and proud of him. We're honoring tonight Miss Marlene Capristo of our brand new Digital Learning Academy. She jumped right in tough times in the middle of a pandemic and started a brand new school. So she's literally building that plane as we fly down the runway, but you wouldn't know it with Miss Capristo because she is calm, confident, and brings her expertise to the school and is really thriving over there. We're so proud of her. At Corte Sierra, we've got our famous Falcon Principal Tanya Rodiger. She is the epitome of school pride. She brings enthusiasm and a positive attitude to her hard work every single day, and we're proud to recognize her along with Superintendent Watson, who's also recognizing her. Also being recognized from his office is Principal Tammy Garrett from Western Sky Middle School, one of our Wildcats. That's an A+ school, an A-rated school, and a National Blue Ribbon school. And in her spare time, Principal Garrett is also the middle school state coordinator for the National Association of Secondary School Principals. So she's working hard with our Wildcat family, and we're so grateful for that. Also a National Blue Ribbon school, an A-rated school, and an A+ school of excellence. Superintendent Watson recently recognized Principal Jennifer Benjamin. She also mentors our other principals, and she runs her lauded campus with pride and love and precision. So we applaud her for that. Our retired superintendent, Dr. Heck, has a school named after him, L. Thomas Heck Middle School, and the proud principal there is Kristen Casillas. She does such an outstanding job building a team. She leans in with so much trust and confidence with the people around her so they can really walk arm in arm to ensure excellence for their students. And indeed, she always puts children first. And finally, an interim principal who was recently recognized by Superintendent Steve Watson is Miss Denise Lundberg, right here at Litchfield Elementary School, one of our owls. That's a 5-time A+ school of excellence, one of the very few schools across the entire state that has won that award 5 times. And when Principal Sabina Hopper had to step out of her role for some personal reasons recently, Denise Lundberg leaned into that opportunity with so much grace and, not surprising, a ton of expertise. It was an absolute seamless transition thanks to Denise and the entire OWL family who managed that situation with so much poise and so much grace. It's a testament to Sabina Hopper's leadership that she has a team that can do so well in her absence. And we certainly are indebted to Denise Lundberg for helping out when we needed her. But those are just 7 of our 17 principals, and October is National School Principal Month. So tonight we applaud all of our school principals who come to work every single day, fully committed to kids and to their staff. They work intensely. They're filled with commitment during long hours, lots of stress. And what do they do for fun? They go to classrooms and they sit down on the floor and they just fill their buckets because of their love for children. They hang out with kids and say, oh yeah, this is why I'm here. This is why I work so hard. And then they come back the next day and do it all over again. So to all 17 of our school principals, there are no words to describe our gratitude to you, our respect for their expertise, and our profound and humble gratitude for your commitment. Thank you and congratulations. Thank you very much. Let's hear it for them. Yep.
Thank you very much, Shelley, and congratulations to everyone who is recognized. If you're following along on our agenda, we are going to skip over item 3B. That is actually moved to our November 9th meeting, so stay tuned. That presentation will happen during our next scheduled meeting. We're going to go on to 3C, the fiscal year 2021 maintenance and operation override update with Mrs. Wendy Qualls.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the governing board and the public. So this evening for you, I have our 2021 maintenance and operations override update. I'm Wendy Qualls, Executive Director of Finance, and this presentation aligns with our strategic plan to increase stakeholder knowledge and understanding of school finance. The Arizona revised statute requires school districts with overrides to hold a public meeting between September 1st and October 31st to give an update on the programs that are financed with the override. So I have two columns on this presentation slide. The first is fiscal year 2021 and the second is fiscal year 2022. We are required to show how we spent the funding in the previous year and how we plan to spend it this year, our estimate. So previously our override was 10%. It was increased to 15%. And the promise we made at that time was 5% of that would go to teacher pay or staff pay. So you'll see on the second line, $3 million in 2021 and 2022. To maintain our current staffing, such as special area teachers, coaches, student advisors, a little over 6 million this year, down to 5.6 next year. Maintain accelerated programming. That was our Spanish program in the traditional academy. In 2021, since we were closed the majority of the year, we had paused that program. For 2022, they're using an online program, which is funded through capital as opposed to maintenance and operations. So the amount's zero. For last school year, we just had some sports in the spring, but minimal. So $5,000. The estimate for the current year is $125,000. Maintaining a nurse at each school, $419,000 this year, an estimate of $425,000 for the current year. And then some funds for recruiting and retaining effective teachers and staff. We spent $66,000 last year and an estimate this year of $50,000. And you'll notice the amount is decreasing. The override is based on the prior year average daily membership. So if we think back 2 years ago, our average daily membership was higher than last year. So therefore, in the current year, we're going to see a decrease. Have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to say that I appreciate the transparency and think that this would be really useful along with the informational pamphlet that we sent out for anyone who's wondering the override that's on the current ballot, what those funds are actually going to. So I think this is a great breakdown as well as that. So that should be available to answer any questions and provide that transparency to the voting public. So I appreciate this, Wendy.
Thanks.
We had one question, knowing our current staffing challenges overall, what do you include in the recruiting and retaining effective teachers and staff? Like what types of things are included in that line item?
So for last year, that included any exception that was made to hire staff.
Okay.
So when we were matching staff or incoming applicants'
Right,
salaries.
with years of experience and things like that
Yes.
to match them. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. We will move on. Mrs. Qualls is also going to present our bond update as of June 30th, 2021.
All right, we'll go back to the beginning of this one.
All right, so this is an update on the bonds that were authorized in the 2014 election. Again, I'm Wendy Qualls, Executive Director of Finance, and the presentation is to increase our stakeholder knowledge and understanding of school funding. Again, this Arizona revised statute requires any district with bonds outstanding, any of the proceeds still available to spend. We must do a public meeting between September 1st and October 31st to update on the improvements that have been financed through the bond. So in 2014, our voters authorized $35 million in bond sales. So we issue those bonds over time rather than incurring the debt all at one time. We try to spread that out. It helps smooth out our tax rate. And it also just makes it so the funds we're receiving them as we need them, as opposed to drawing all down at first when it begins. So in 2015, we sold $6 million. 2016, another $6 million. 2018, $16 million. In 2021, the final $7 million. Expenditures as of June 30th, 2021 was $26,681,000. So at the end of June, we have cash available in our bond funds of $8,318,000. In the voter pamphlet, it outlined the amount that we would spend in different categories. So remodeling of existing schools, the budget amount was $2.1 million. For new school construction, it was 25.2, and remodeling facilities, 200,000. This year, I've added the year that the project was completed, so we can kind of track that and see what was our current projects and previous. So this bond, if we look at the new school, it was used to complete Verado Heritage and then to construct Belen Soto. And we've started the process for designing White Tanks Learning Center. $3.5 million was included for operational and administrative construction. So we built our support service facility that opened in the fall of 2017 and installed a new above ground fuel storage system. Pupil transportation vehicles, $4 million. We've spent 2.4, so we have an additional about 1.6 million. And then when we issue bonds, we have to pay legal costs, and that totaled around 89,000 year to date for that entire sale. So our future plans include White Tanks Learning Center. Other funds that were used along with the bonds to complete these projects at Verado Heritage, we had community education donated funds for their playground. We had donations. The 2009 bond, $8 million was from the 2009 bond, and then adjacent ways. Belen Soto, we used adjacent ways, just under 800,000. Scott Libby remodel, around 78,000 of capital funds. We use adjacent ways for the bus loop at Wigwam Creek. We acquired an ADEQ grant to help cover a portion of the cost of removing our old tanks. That was 64,000. And then Dan Ensign, our Director of Finance, I did it again this year, Director of Facilities, and Roger Spivey, Director of Purchasing, worked with the School Facilities Board to get around 2.9 or 1.9 million for roof replacement at Palm Valley and Western Sky. And I'm Wendy. If you have any questions.
$4 million for Heritage, but it was also added to the cost of that was the $8 million from 2009.
Correct.
So it's like somewhere around 12.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have two questions. My first question is, what is the deadline or timeline for the remaining bonds to be issued or utilized? Like, what's our cutoff date?
So the last issue was in 2021. And the target is that you spend those within 3 years of selling. So that would be 2024.
Okay, so when we look at the remaining Okay, so everything's been issued. Now we have the funds. We just need to spend the funds.
Yes.
Okay. So that goes into my second question, which I'm not sure if is more appropriate for you or for Superintendent Gunning, which is what are the set plans or thoughts or ideas behind the remaining expenditures? I understand that White Tanks Learning Center, we have 4.8 million potentially to be utilized for that. We're not sure how the construction costs are going to end up there, but under the remodeling existing schools, we have 1.3 million there. Do we have any current needs that we know of that we plan to utilize those funds for?
I would probably have to defer to Dan and to see. A lot of times what might come up is if it's something that wouldn't be covered typically by the school facilities board, but right at this time, we're pretty much in the process of all of our remaining projects. We do have a couple of some projects that we're just waiting on bids and that type of thing to come in, but they're pretty minor and smaller in nature.
Okay, thank you.
And remember too, with the bond, we have some flexibility with how we spend within these categories. So since it was a $35 million bond, we have 3.5 million that we can move between the different categories.
Okay, but just to clarify that, because what we provided at the time the bond was approved only included these three categories. For example, we didn't include technology or any other expenditures. We can't add any other categories. We have to spend all of it on remodeling existing new school or remodeling administrative facilities, correct?
So you have to stay within those categories, yes.
Okay.
I believe in our pamphlet, we did include, it could include furniture and equipment and security, because we were looking at the fencing around Verado Elementary
Okay.
fields. So we could also look at security concerns or issues
Okay,
or
okay,
improvements.
good to know. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Wendy. We are moving on for our public request to speak. We have a few people tonight. I'm going to read the public comment information, and then I will call you up one at a time. Pursuant to ARS 38-43101, this agenda item provides an open call to the public, allowing individuals to address the governing board on any issue within the jurisdiction of the board. Items not listed on the agenda may be brought to the governing board's attention under this section of the agenda. Due to the Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot discuss or take action on items not listed on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-43101, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes, and no more than 30 minutes will be devoted to public comment portion of this agenda. There will be a timer on the screen there, so you'll know when your time is coming due. I will announce two folks, one that is up first and someone that is on deck. So if you'll just be ready when the next person comes, you can start right away. So our first speaker this evening is Jocelyn. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to pronounce your last name. Do we have Jocelyn here? Okay, thank you so much. Talking to us about transportation, and Patty, you are on deck. And I will call out others as we go. Thank you. Welcome, Jocelyn.
Thank you. Good evening, President Clymer, members of the governing board, and Superintendent Gunning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak this evening. I am Jocelyn Zavolsik. I am a student transporter at LESD District, proud member of the team, and I have been employed here about 5 years. I am before you this evening on behalf of myself and my colleagues, great group of people that you see out here. with great concerns and a request that our concerns be addressed in a timely manner and questions clarified and answered honestly. We're at an all-time low in morale in our department alone. It's overworked and underpaid, and it seems to be the theme of the year. So with what I have left, a minute and a half or so, our concerns will be repeated amongst my colleagues here, but in short, we have this pay raise that is set to expire on May 20th as a part of the ESSER funds. And we would like a date sooner than the end of the school year to address that rate. Does it continue or does it stop? We feel that it is unfair for it to stop and that we need to be competitive of the other districts because we are losing employees that are going to other districts. We're not saying that we are irreplaceable, but we are those that showed up. We continue to show up, we're dedicated, and we love our students. We want to do the best that we can, and we need your support even more so. When our time is tried and our patience is tried, we're divided in our department. We're in a crisis. We really are. And so we need intervention in that area, but we also need a fair pay wage as well. Not asking for much, but just to be fair. And you'll hear a lot more, I'm sure, for that. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Patty, the floor is yours. Christina Hernandez, you will be on deck.
Good evening, Superintendent Gunning. Good evening, members of the board, and good evening, Litchfield Elementary employees. I'm here to say that in behalf of the Litchfield school drivers, monitors, and myself, we would like that wage increase to remain at all times to work clocked in, not be lowered or subtracted while we are in meetings or disinfecting our buses. And we would like this wage increase to remain permanent. We have employees that have been here from 1 year up to 20 years, and that shows consistency, dedication, and loyalty. And this wage increase has been overdue and well-deserved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Patty. Christina Hernandez, you're up next. And Rosalee is on deck. Christina? Okay, Rosalee? Mike Finnegan will be on deck.
My name is Rosalee. I represent the monitors of LASD School District, the bus drivers. When we are hired as monitors, we are told they were equal to a driver. And without a monitor, there could not be any sped buses. Today, there's 20 sped buses and 15 regular sped ed. So monitors are more important, not say more important, but are valued, I think, in our department. When we were told that there would be a $2 raise, we were excited, but then let down by the words, only drivers. And that you would get a $1 raise and then be told it'd be taken away in May. It's hard to believe that you can be valued more in pay if you go flip a burger and get paid $14 to $16 an hour than to work for an A1 rated school district. I am hoping that there is a way for equal $2 across the board and to be treated as an A1 rated transportation aid. What does the transportation department employees need to do to be valued and recognized as all other departments in the Litchfield School District?
Thank you. Mike Finnegan, you are up next. Teresa Alvey, you will be on deck.
Hi, I'd like to take this time to talk about the ESSER funding that's been put together and the 15 math specialists and 1 district math czar that's been appropriated for hire. Out of that $7 million of ESSER funding, the $2 million will go to these 16 positions. The specialists are supposed to help with instructional and coaching assistance to the teachers and paras for tier 2 and tier 3 assistants. I don't really know what those tiers mean. And the district math czar supports the math specialists. My question is, why are there teachers, the existing teachers, not skilled in teaching math? What occupation hires outside specialists to teach you how to do your jobs? My wife was a speech pathologist. My oldest daughter is an HR manager. Her younger sister is a physician's assistant, and I was a chemist. Not one of these employers would think of bringing in consultants to assist us in performing our jobs. You're expected to be capable, trained, and held accountable for your performance. If you're not capable to teach math, then you should be, there's plenty of training provided in this organization. Seek training in math at in-service days. And the math programs that you're providing are so scripted. Anybody should be able to get it across to another person. The Engaged New York Math Foundation's Wonder in Math. I see 5 pages of stipends coming up in tonight's meeting for training. These trainings, $125 a person, multiple teachers getting trained. And but conscious discipline, you get $500 for training. And UCARU, you get money for that too. So these programs are so scripted that I just want to know why the teachers aren't capable of teaching math, the existing teachers that you have on your rolls. Where were the school principals? Why weren't they in line to see Sarah Pearson, the director of curriculum and professional development? This just
Thank you,
does,
Mr. Finnegan.
these proficiency deficits just haven't popped up all of a sudden.
Thank you for your comment. Teresa, you are up next. Mary McGhee, you are on deck.
Hi, Governing Board, Superintendent Gunning. I am Teresa Alvey. I do the routing with Litchfield Transportation, which this year has definitely been a challenge with all of the breakdowns of routes and late buses and drivers working exceedingly over their amount of time that they should be working. We had one driver that actually did 6 runs, which would normally just be a 2 or a 3-tier run. I'm here to talk more about the faithfulness of the drivers. I really am. I mean, I am in full support of a raise. I think the temporary thing, I'm afraid of what the outcome is going to be. I got to be honest, I mean, and it's not just us. We have parents approaching our buses saying, what is our board doing? And we're trying to stay positive with it, but we don't know what to say anymore. I thought the whole bus driver shortage was a COVID thing. I honestly did, until I started looking across the board, looking across the country. It's like This isn't about COVID anymore. COVID was last year. This is about what's happening now with our bus drivers. We have faithful drivers here. You know, me and another driver was talking, it's like we were trained to be faithful drivers. And I know I've walked a lot with pneumonia. And I'm sure I could point a lot of these women that have walked the lots being sick, or even the gentlemen that we have. But we're faithful. Yes, do we need the money? Of course. But we're faithful at getting out there. You know, I have a jacked up knee right now, but I would still get on a bus and make sure them kids get what they need. No offense, ma'am, Wendy. A $2 temporary is a slap in the face. With what's happening across what these other schools are paying, I could tell you any school right now what they're paying because I've researched it out. We're faithful. We want to stay with Litchfield. We have drivers leaving, going to Agua Fria, going to Dysart. We're losing our main trainers because of this temporary thing, and they don't want to leave. They're literally at the dispatcher window or sitting in my office saying, I don't want to go there. You know, we love Litchfield. We want to stay with Litchfield, but I got to be honest, I don't know what tomorrow is going to hold as far as our drivers, because they're dropping, like, we're losing a couple a week, maybe. We're down. We're so short, it's not even, I can't even comprehend it, you know, so I just really hope that you guys can take that under consideration. I know everybody's strapped. You know, grass can die without water. You put water on it, it lives. We're losing here. We're going to lose valuable people here. And I just hope you take that under consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Mary McGhee? Mary? Oh, she had to leave. Okay, thank you. Okay, that is it for public comment. Thank you very much for everyone's comments tonight.
I know that we're not
okay, I was
allowed to discuss what the majority of the comments were about tonight, but Superintendent Gunning, can you at least explain to these folks what we are doing and when they would expect for the board to have the next discussion on this topic as a response to the criticism?
Is it appropriate for someone to make a motion that we look into this and set a date to make a decision?
Protocol, we don't need a motion, but you can direct Superintendent Gunning or the staff to look further into the issue and provide feedback or recommendations back to the board. Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's what I would like to ask for.
Okay. Thank you. Did you want to answer Kim's question there really quick?
And that's perfect with what you were kind of saying, that we are in the process of doing a salary survey because we need to look at all of our classified positions so that we can then come back to make a recommendation.
And what do you anticipate that time frame to be?
We're working on it as quickly as possible because we want everything to be in effect by January 1.
Thank you very much. We look forward to further recommendations at the next meetings.
Can I just say, is there a way to, January 1 seems like a long ways away, and it seems like things are going to happen and end up costing us more money if we delay.
Yeah, we'll do it as fast as we can. I mean, we're definitely already started collecting information from surrounding districts, but we still have additional information to gather.
Also, I'd like to make one suggestion to the district staff to keep us updated on the timing of when we'll hear more about this in our Friday update, just as things progress, so we know when to expect the next recommendation. Moving on to the consent agenda, item 5A. I will open the floor. Please note that we have a hand carry item, item 6H, which will be removed from consent because it is hand carried, and we'll vote on that separately. But I will open the floor for any comments or questions before a motion.
I would also like to request removal of item 6L, math specialist, item 6M, math coach, 6Q, conscious discipline training, and 6S, the roving administrator, for additional discussion.
Well, I would like 6Q, conscious discipline, removed also, but I guess I'll second that motion if that's what's needed.
Okay, I don't think there's a motion on the floor yet, but I think so. I have L, M, Q, and S. I am requesting to pull off item P. I apologize, we're getting a little crazy with our consent agenda tonight, but Melissa, did you have anything to add before we open the floor for a motion? Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I will go ahead and make the motion because I have everything listed here. I move that we approve the consent agenda items minus the following: item 6H, item 6L, item 6M, item 6P, item 6Q, and item 6S.
I have a question before we do that. I don't want to rehash this unnecessarily, but in item K, supplementary contracts, and I know we had a discussion about that where it had, I had questioned the all the stuff with conscious discipline and that there was a bunch of stipends, but I thought I understood that this is sort of already happened or something. Is that correct? So why is it on the agenda tonight? Thank you. Okay, so we can proceed. I'm okay with the motion.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor.
I second.
Okay, there's a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will begin the items removed. I'll just go in alphabetical order to make it easy. First, we'll go to item 6H, the employment position change with new contract renewal, salary exemptions of certified personnel. You will see the hand carry document in front of you. I will open the floor for any questions or comments. This was pulled off because this was new information. So if you haven't had time to review it, please do so now. And if you have any questions, I believe Superintendent Gunning or even Mrs. Sanders could help with that. I will start off by saying that I would like for, as a future item, not for this, but in connection with this, just to have a review of, as we move into future school years, the placement chart. I think we're going to start to see this happen more and more as we start to move people into different positions, whether they're internal or external hires. And the reason that we're seeing this is because the person that would take this job would actually make less if we did them on the placement chart than what they're currently making. And so we need to adjust their salary appropriately because they're doing a different job. But to me, that says that there's something off balance with our placement chart if our current employees are not able to move up and increase their jobs here without making commensurate pay. So that's for a future item, but at least I'd like to mention that the reason that we're doing this is because I believe our placement chart might be misaligned. Any other questions or comments? If not, I will entertain excuse me.
I would like to better understand the performance pay. Are we allowed to discuss details behind this?
Sure. Anything that's on this document here, yes.
Okay, so.
Can't discuss the employee specifically because we didn't notify them. that they
Okay,
were
well, we
going
can
to
discuss the numbers.
But you
Right.
could
The
discuss
salary,
in general.
Okay.
Yes.
So the numbers include for the previous salary, 2 performance awards that total $8,400. Those are included, are those or are those not included in this prorated amount? I guess the first one that was distributed versus this one, I am now confused by what is being presented here. So it's really challenging for me to say yes on this when I'm literally seeing this 3 minutes ago. So yeah, I'm just going to need more of an explanation. Can someone walk me through this?
Monica, do you want to explain how you calculated? Madam President, members of the board. So your question is regarding performance pay. So administrators are eligible for performance pay. And so, you know, with any administrator that is promoted into that position would receive that eligible performance pay as stated in the placement chart.
I think the question, correct me if I'm wrong, was in the initial document that we were given, that was the teacher performance pay that was included. So that was included into the base, basically going into the directorship. And then the admin performance pay was added on top of that. And then in the revised version, it looks like the calculation was done differently, where, you know, you took it from 212 days to 260 days, but then you removed the teacher performance part of that. So I think is that the question, Kim, of what's the difference, but why is it revised and how did you calculate that?
So what you see is in order.
Okay, hold on just one second. Your mic isn't on. Can you guys? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure everybody can hear you.
Okay.
Testing.
Okay, so really what you're saying is the original amounts that were presented didn't actually increase to the number of days, the appropriate number of days, and so that's what the revision is based on?
So it is revised. And so in order to do an apples to apples, a correction was made to the document presented this evening. And so, yes, so what you see is the presented salary information. So it was a correction
to take into consideration the additional days worked.
Correct.
Okay.
So anytime an employee is promoted into a position, we do like to examine their current salary standing, and then, if appropriate, calculate out that salary to 12 months if it is an administrative position. And so again, what you see this evening is a revision to present an apples to apples situation or comparison, and to present what we would normally do for any other employee who is promoted into a position.
Okay, so then so really the exception that we are approving is comparing the 0 to 2 years experience of $66,624 to the actual proposed salary of $82,343?
Correct. So HR will prepare salary exception documents anytime the presented base salary is over the placement chart. So that is why you have that document.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry, I have a question. You're saying the placement chart of 66 is equivalent to the 82, or it's equivalent to the base pay?
That would be base pay. So when you're looking at the chart, that is base salary only, and then there's an added performance pay for administrators.
Okay, so it's not compared to the 83 then, it's compared to,
What is it compared to? I'd love to know.
Is it the
I
73?
don't know then.
Is it the first number here, the 73?
It is the amount that is labeled under base salary. It's not the total, it's the amount labeled base salary, 12-month base salary.
There's not a number there. It says 12-month annual base salary exception, but that's blank. And then the next column is sum of amounts above, but the sum of amounts above include override compensation and 301 money and Indian gaming. So it's not apples to apples, and that it's not base to base.
So my version, I do see an amount. So do you see a blank? Is that what you're saying? Your copy shows a blank.
Yeah, I mean, are you seeing what I'm saying?
Okay, so that's all one line, I guess is 73, but I guess so if the 66,000 is base pay with nothing else added to it, then that should only compare to the 61,000 here, because that is the base pay here, not including the override compensation, the increase, the 301 and the Indian gaming. Is that correct?
Well, so that's the reason you see the illustration of all of the other added pays, because certified staff do receive multiple pay lines. And so in consideration of what an employee would earn in a year, we would sum those amounts. Otherwise, a person would receive, much lower pay if we didn't, in essence, look at their per diem or pay them based off of their per diem.
Okay, so what I'm trying to boil down to is what is the dollar amount of the exception that we are approving? We're saying the placement charge says 66,624. What is it in fact that we are approving here? Because I see total annual salary, I see performance pay, I see the sum of all these things. Can you boil it down for me and say, how much is that exception? Is it 5,000? Is it 10,000? Is it 20,000?
It's the amount that's labeled 12-month annual director base salary exception.
So it's $73,213 is what you are saying is the exception compared to the $66,624. So we're approving $6,589 as the exception.
You're approving the amount that you mentioned, correct? And I'm sorry, the reason I'm hesitating a little here, I don't want to interfere with the notice that I don't want to get into a situation where we are discussing an individual and there's a separate protocol for that. And
I completely understand that, but I cannot be asked to approve something that I don't know what I'm approving. So we need to get down to boil it down. What's the actual exception here? And so it seems to me that the actual exception that we're approving based on this request is $6,589. Does that provide clarity to me? Does that provide clarity to the rest of the board members?
Yeah, if that is the true amount, correct, yes, $6,000. I guess was my initial question in the beginning, is that we're up to 8 years experience on the chart here. I mean, we're well off of the placement chart, so
right, in future documents, I think, am I hearing this correctly, that you would like to know what the
what the chart placement would be, and then what is the additional amount that we are requesting to grant the employee. So is that the 6,000 calculation that you're coming up with? It's the above and beyond amount, the amount above the chart? Because in
Yes.
previous salary exception documents we presented, because we do present these often, we are not illustrating it that way. We are just presenting the approved salary that Superintendent Gunning determines.
I think
But we
normally-
can add that. So in the future, if you want to just know what extra amount are we really asking for above and beyond the chart, we can illustrate it that way.
Yeah, I think that is more useful because to President Clymer's point, if we are indeed approving $73,213, we're nowhere on the chart at all. So that's begs the question to your previous point, do our salary charts need updated? Seems as though they probably do.
I mean, yes, I would agree with that. We can't get into that area only because we're not noticed to discuss salary placement charts overall. So we can talk about it in terms of this here in whether we want to grant the approval for the exception for this placement chart. But yes, I would agree that there is a gross imbalance here because I think this is going to happen repeatedly over and over based on our folks' salary. So unfortunately, we can't discuss that in detail this evening.
It doesn't always, I mean, again, it depends on where the employee stands on the chart or just, how long they've been in the district. And so that will always kind of drive that final dollar for them.
Sure, but I mean, I think in general, this person is receiving a promotion in terms of job placement. But if we paid them what we would typically pay them based on the placement chart, they would make less money than they make in a lesser position. And that is an imbalance in my mind. That doesn't make any sense. But that's where we are. That's what's on our docket to approve tonight for this position. So are there any other comments or questions and related to this exception request? No. Yes? No. Melissa? Jeremy? Okay, I will entertain a motion. No one? I move that we approve the exception, the salary exception as presented.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 6L, revised math specialist job description. Kim, I believe that was yours that you pulled off. Did you want to start the conversation? Okay.
I will start the conversation. So I wanted to pull this off the consent agenda because I wanted to find out a couple of things. Number one, if the district had put additional thought or consideration into doing more of a data-based distribution of this particular resource of the math specialists for the proposed 15 people that are being hired, as well as when, my second question is, when do they expect these folks to actually be hired and in place?
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. The position is a revision. We currently have one math specialist in the district at one of our Title I middle schools paid for from Title I funding. And we are going back and taking a look at the data to see how to equitably distribute those positions, which are in the grant for 15 positions, like you stated. But we're also, I forget, what was your second question?
The second question was the timing, but my concern with approving, not with approving the job description, but my concern is that approving the job description gives the district the green light to hire these 15 people at each of the campuses. And I have great concern with that. So that's part of my hesitation with, or why I would like to discuss this further to find out what is in fact the plan for these 15 people who are going to be a very good resource that we need to utilize.
So ideally, the positions would be posted before all of our, so we can start internal movement. The goal is not to hire consultants. They're to hire experts from within, like with our instructional coaches, internal and external positions. But we would like to post those early so that we could get some shifting going in case that opens up positions for math at our schools. And we are looking, going back, like I said, and looking at the data to make sure that, like your concern was, don't just put one at every single school and 2 aides and, use the data. So keeping in mind, even when we're interviewing those people, talking to them about, this is a position that could be a mobile position. So we're doing this is database, we're looking at scores. And when those scores come up, or, if you're a school that's relatively high, you come up to where you were pre-COVID, there may be a greater need in the district where that person may have to go and move around. So taking a perspective like that when we're looking at those positions.
Okay, so my follow-up to that is, so you're saying post these jobs early. So for me, that means we're posting them tomorrow, but you're really saying we're going to post them to start fall of 2022. Is that correct?
So post in January-ish. I mean, nothing is set in stone.
Yeah.
So I say that, but post in January, know who's going into those positions, be able to do training over the summer, be able to get if we do a math adoption, which we're starting our first meeting on Thursday, to get the math curriculum in, to get them sorting through the math curriculum. So they would start July 1, but yes, post early, so we know what positions we have open at the school sites, then to fill those positions, and then to provide get them trained and ready to go for the beginning of the school year, not July 1, but before school, like in our instructional coach calendar.
Okay, so our original goal that was presented with the ESSER funds was to have all students at or above grade level by May of 2023. So that gives us 1 year with these folks in place. And I believe the funding asks for 2 years of funding for these people. So how is that going to work with the timelines of the actual funds and the funding?
The funding go to 2024 now, Wendy. So the funding is extended to 2024.
Okay, does that mean we're extending our goal to 2024 or we're retaining our goal to May of 2023?
We have not discussed changing that goal.
Okay.
But with the shortage, we don't really have a choice but to wait until next year to hire these people, because then we'd be either taking people out of the classroom or getting people that aren't as highly qualified as what we would find if we look for next year. So, and that was a discussion we had with all of the administrators and talking about how to handle this.
Okay, that just really causes hesitation in me because it feels like we're waiting to take action on this. And I don't feel like we have another 3/4 of the school year to not act.
Well, we're not taking action on this particular item, but principals are already and teachers are already doing their intervention groups and using the math aides that they do have. I mean, they have math aid staffing. They're doing math interventions and those things on their campuses. There's just not with this additional support that we've been granted through this funding. So action's being taken. It's just not new action. It's the action that we would normally do.
I think
when
the
we have students who
difficulty-
are struggling.
Yeah, the difficulty is with the teacher shortage, and especially teachers that are appropriately certified in math, especially at the middle school level. So taking one of those teachers out, then to me, that's addressing one issue, but I'm creating a larger issue because then I'm impacting their day-to-day instruction of all children.
But that's assuming that we're going to hire all of these positions internally, and we shouldn't assume that.
No, we're not
So-
assuming we would hire them all
No,
internally, but
Well,
the
but you're
team.
saying you're creating another problem someplace else.
But,
That wouldn't-
well, when you think about the other highly appropriately certified people are under contract in other districts, so they can't move over. They
I mean,
can't.
we're losing teachers every month. I mean, for better jobs, for more pay. I mean, we just saw someone this month to the Department of Education. Like, we're losing people all the time. People are moving constantly. What harm does it do to start now? I mean, if you don't find the appropriate people, you don't find them. I mean, we're not going to hire people that aren't good. But why say we're going to wait until July when we don't know that there's not anyone out there because we're not trying? I mean, we have the funding, correct? If we were to start them earlier, we do have the funding for that.
It's not technically approved yet, but I guess Wendy's saying we could move forward with it, but it's the piece that Superintendent Gunning is saying is, so use this school as an example. They opened a position for a math specialist, and their fourth grade teacher interviews people from, I mean, when they're interviewing for openings that they have right now, they may get 3 or 4. Some people get lucky and get a position. So let's assume internally, and now you have a vacancy in a fourth grade classroom. You don't have a sub, you don't have long-term subs, you don't have, so it's that's why we want to wait until January and plan and have everybody staffed appropriately.
I think that there's really not a dichotomy here. I think what Gina's talking about is this is something that's in the future when the funding happens. And I agree wholeheartedly. We need to do something now. We're all screaming that. And my impression of, math is a scripted teaching. It doesn't need a lot of ring around the rosy, touchy-feely games, this, that, whatever. Here's a multiplication table, learn it. If you don't learn it, then whatever, put incentives for kids to learn it. And instead of patting everybody on the back for not learning, set some bars, some standards, and some kids are going to do well and some are going to not do well. And oh my God, equity goes out the door, but at least we'll be teaching math and teaching reading. And I'm just afraid that we're so far away from that every time we're not doing the obvious easy things that have been done for 100 years without all this fancy stuff and experts and specialists and going out and spending $10,000 on training for this and that and whatever. If we go back to that, we could be the best school district in reality, with achievement scores. And so I think we need to do all of the above, but I think we need to be a little bit kind of a tough love thing here where we've just got to go in and just say, hey, let's just put all this other stuff aside and let's start putting multiplication tables and division tables and have contests of kids to excel at it and incentives to do it. In other words, just go to some old-fashioned stuff that's worked. We put the man on the moon with slide rules. We didn't have computers. We didn't have all this wonderful stuff going on. And I think that we need some reality in it. And I don't even think we need experts and specialists to explain to us what was done in the past and worked perfectly well. Amen.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. I want to sort of bring it back into the math specialist, like specifically the job description, because that's what's on the agenda. I think we can open up the floor for any additional comments. I think the board has been clear about obviously monitoring our progress to the goal of all students being proficient by 2023, and the worry, if that's the right word, that 1 year isn't enough to do that. So whether it might not be with this specific point, and I understand what you're saying, there's lots of other things that are happening. I think that's what's going on here. So I don't think it's specific to the math specialist. So I just want to get back to that job description, and we'll have additional time to talk about the learning loss and ESSER funds and all of that kind of stuff, how those things and the timing in which those are being used. One follow-up question I did want to ask specifically about the math specialist, as you mentioned, you are reviewing the data and looking at who's going to go where and which positions, are going to go where. What is the timing on that? So when will that be determined? Prior to these folks being hired, or will that not be determined until next school year?
it'll be right about the same time as them being hired. So I would say December-ish, we would have a good idea of, we would have some good data to look at and multiple data points.
Thank you.
And taking into consideration that could even change with the spring data too. So, as time changes, there may be adjustments made.
Sure. So in the current job description, it says that this position reports to the principal. Is that potentially something that would be up for revision when we determine the best allocation of these resources?
Well, the reason they report to the principals is because the principals are responsible for evaluating all the teachers on their campus. So if they have that person on their campus, they're the best person to evaluate. That doesn't mean that they can't be relocated or moved for the good of the district.
Okay. I just know historically we haven't done that. So I'm just really hesitant to,
I understand. And we're looking at it through a new lens too. We haven't done that in the past. You're right. We haven't looked at it that way. And we are looking at this position differently for the future. And I mean, it is a revision, and there were times in the district when we had more than one math specialist working for us. So I guess, it comes down to trust. We're telling you what we're planning on doing. And so hopefully you can trust in that.
Okay, I will entertain a motion for item 6L, the revised math specialist job description.
I will move to approve revised math specialist job description as presented.
I second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 6M, which is the new district math coaching position. I'm sorry, Kim, was that you again?
Yeah, I put
Okay.
on the agenda really for the same reason. So this is one
Yeah.
position. I understand the 15 positions might upheave some things in the district, but my question really is the same for this. It's a new position for next school year. I feel like maybe there's potential to get someone in there sooner rather than later to get some of that low-hanging fruit and get us some wins in the current year.
It boils down to the same thing with the coaches on the sites. I mean, I'm not opposed to it because I'm, facilitating the math curriculum adoption piece, but I don't want to leave a school or a classroom high and dry to be working on something at the district level that's not directly impacting children at that moment. We want this person to get in place because our curriculum department consists of Dr. Pearson and Phyllis Lucier, who does PD and oversees our instructional coaches. So a math coach at the district level, considering the implementation of a new math adoption for next year and our math scores, and someone to provide PD and to organize all of that for all of those coaches at the sites is crucial. But again, if people were out there looking for jobs, we would have posted those 15 positions and this position and hired them right away, because ideally that would be fantastic. But the people realistically just aren't there.
I understand that. The way I'm looking at this differently from the math specialist position is this is one position that is going to potentially impact or have an impact on every single student in the district. So perhaps it would be worth pulling an amazing, excellent teacher that's internal, and of course posting external as well to make sure that we have a
Absolutely.
robust job candidate pool, and having a transition in one classroom this year for the greater good of the district. I wouldn't normally, I agree with the 15 that's if we expect that we're going to hire most of those internally, that probably isn't, but with that combined with the teacher shortage probably isn't feasible. But with this position, it seems as though the curriculum department could utilize this person sooner rather than later to ensure a smoother transition in curriculum and really be able to hit the ground running when we get those math specialists on board.
So what I hear you saying is you would like Superintendent Gunning and her staff to take back and look at a creative way to get that moving this year.
The math coach, yes.
One comment I'd like to make overall, just actually on both of these positions, is I think the underlying assumption here is that the majority, if not all of these, are going to come from internal positions. Because I keep hearing you say, we're going to leave classrooms empty, we're going to leave principals empty-handed, that kind of thing. I just want to caution the district that, you know, I think that we need to make sure that we're looking at every available resource, and it's not just the people that work here today. I know that you guys know that. I'm not trying to tell you how to hire. I think that it's important that in staffing shortage crisis like we're in, turning over every stone is what we need to do, because obviously everyone is as desperate as we are. I get that.
Yes, and my reference to leaving classes high and dry is strictly for this year, for the same reason that Superintendent Gunning said, is people are either under contract, they're in the classroom. So if we're not pulling from our schools, we're pulling from somewhere else, and we don't interview people that are currently under contract. So that's why we say it like that, not because when we post won't be internal and external, but in this situation, mid-year, you almost have to go internal in the situations, because people just aren't out there unless, oh my gosh, someone just moved here from Michigan and got hired last week, because it does happen once in a while. Like it's a glorious day. It's happened at a couple of our schools. They found people that just got here, and we've been really lucky, but it's not common.
Okay, any other comments or questions? I will entertain a motion for the new district math coaching position. Okay, I will move to approve new district math coach position and job description as presented.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Mhm.
So if I vote to approve this, does that mean I'm approving the timeline as stated for hiring? Meeting of July 1st, 2022 timeframe?
That is what is listed in, I'm sorry. So the timeline for completion is listed, but that's, okay, that's information only. So
Okay.
no, you
Thank
are
you.
not approving the timeline for completion.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you for the clarification.
And I will second.
Okay, so there's a motion on the table. You seconded the motion?
Yes, I will second the
Okay,
motion.
motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item P, the stipend request for approval for the creating data template. I asked for this to be removed, not because I want to bore us with the details of Excel spreadsheets, more in the fact of I wanted to get an update if we are asking for stipend, additional funding for creating these templates for schools to use. I wanted to get an update on sort of the larger software solution for communicating and storing data. Obviously, we're still kind of hand doing it at this point. I know that's a conversation that we've had. I want to see what an update is and how long we're going to be doing these types of sort of stopgaps to get us through.
Which,
P, the stipend request for data template. Yeah, from what I understand, I just want to make sure that I get this. The data template is being asked to be requested. It's being requested so that the information templates can be used at different campuses to provide the data that's distributed at the district level. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And the works are already primarily been completed. So yes, she created a data template that is used by the instructional coaches and given to the teachers. So similar to what they would physically put on a wall in their PLC rooms, it's digital data.
Okay, so the question is, what is we're approving this because we don't have a larger solution. What is the timeline for this in comparison to that?
Okay,
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. They're, I guess, kind of two different things. So taking the
Okay,
data that we
explain that,
currently
gotcha.
have from Inform, putting it into a model that makes sense for, beautiful color coded spreadsheets spreadsheets on Google and everything like that. But then the long-term solution is to find a replacement for Inform, which the process for that, Brian Owen is working on that, and he's creating his team and an implementation team. And he's been working with Roger. They're going to go out, they're going to put an RFP out, and they will have a couple of months, maybe January, February, they'll be bringing something to you for an award is what they're looking at. They're looking at a couple of different programs, and we really like them. The ones that we've looked at so far, just, I mean, 200 reports a teacher can run at her fingertips, classroom dashboard, students take assessment, instant data right there on their computer. I mean, just, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's really
Sure.
what we need.
I don't want to get too far down that road because I know that we're not agendized for that. I just wanted to say this is a stopgap for between now and when a long-term solution is in place.
Yes, this is
Correct.
strictly supplemental.
Okay, sure. That question wasn't about the money or anything like that. It's not a lot. I just was asking more just for timeline of that. So thank you for clarifying. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
I will move to approve the stipend request for the data template as presented. Thank you for the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 6Q, out-of-state travel requests. Jeremy, you asked for this to be pulled off. I believe Kim did as well, so we'll let multiple board members discuss. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Thank you. So conscious discipline is something that is debatable if it works. There are good things about it. There are things that certainly there's a lot of disagreement in the public. On the other hand, we have things around Litchfield Elementary that are mandatory. We have to improve academics, math, things like that. And for goodness sakes, we got to figure out a way to get bus drivers if we can't get kids to school. So I'm sure, you know, whatever, this should not be spending another dime on conscious discipline right now. We do not have the luxury to do that here at Litchfield Elementary School that has urgent needs. The board's even said they're urgent about the academics, math. So here's what I propose. My wife and I will donate all the money needed to give Uber rides to whoever wants to go over to, say, some school like Alhambra that has extremely high achievement, even though they have 64% poverty students and only 11% of the kids are white and whatever else. But for some reason, they're 20, 30 points ahead of us. So we can go over there and I'll pay for the Uber rides for that. And let's spend the $10,446.50 on bus drivers or on something else.
Thank you, Jeremy. Kim?
I just wanted to get a better understanding of who. So I know there's conscious discipline is our social emotional learning. I totally get that. And I know there's different classes and levels and, you know, people who are, you know, black belts and brown belts or whatever their terminology is for that. But I just don't know that I've ever seen how many of the folks in our district are at each of those levels and what we want that to be, what our goal is for that. I know Megan Megan Duplain has done a lot of training, and I just don't know if this particular training is more like a train the trainer and they're going to come back and then, you know, teach folks new things, because I thought that we had a lot of our staff go to a week-long conscious discipline training this summer. And so I am kind of getting to the point where I am like, how much is too much? Is there such thing as too much? I don't know. So I would like to be enlightened with what the district's goal and philosophy is behind that.
Sure. So originally, many moons ago, when the board asked what our path was to maintain and promote the training in our district, one of the things is that it's kind of a step-by-step approach. And number one, it was to train our leaders first to allow them to become the experts to lead their staff. And the way we have done that over the years is that they go to CD1, and then they are helpers at CD1 because they get directly taught by the master instructor from conscious discipline. And then from there, they are invited. It's an application process, but when the master instructor sees some of our leaders or some of the people that are achieving or really not achieving, but really focusing on their skills, they can submit an application to go to CD2, which is an advanced institute. And that is kind of that last training. And it is directly with Dr. Bailey, and there is 50 people there, and they get individualized training and support to grow their leadership skills. And we pay for that out of Title IV. Last year, Luke Janke, Melissa McComb, and Jennifer Benjamin went. And they came back then and led our kickoff this year with all of our administrators and kind of walk them through their journey to help them become that next level of leader on their campus or in their departments. So that is our step-by-step process. It's CD1, it's CD1 helper, and then it's CD2. And all of our training at the district level comes out of Title IV annually.
So what is the difference between, for example, so was the training this summer CD1?
Yes.
Okay. And that happened here. And how many of our people went to that?
Oh, I'm going to say 85, I think.
Okay.
Around. And we had 10 helpers.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. In the notes that we were given, it says that there was 34 staff members. Is
That's paid for out of title, and then
Okay.
schools can choose to use their own money to send their.
for other
Mhm.
employees? Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, keep going, Kim. I just wanted to make sure I was following.
No, I mean, that provides a lot of clarity to me and in our notes that we have here as well, it says that we basically have budgeted for 3 folks to go to this particular training. So that's been included in the Title IV funding. I know that we have implemented this year a program to track our PD, and we as a board still haven't seen anything on that. So I think it's all still kind of theoretical in a way, because we don't see the utilization factor of those things. So I think that might help for me personally I am all for PD, and I know that our teachers need that. I know that our teachers have excellent skills, but we still need to help them in their skills, not only particularly in math or something that's very practical, but also in the soft skills, if you will, like conscious discipline. So I'm 100% supportive of that. I just am trying to put together all of the pieces of that puzzle and how that fits into the funding and our different staff members and the layers behind that. So I appreciate the information that you gave tonight, and I look forward to getting some information on our PD programs in general.
I will add to the conversation that I think it's, this board and district are highly supportive of professional development in general. I have been supportive of social emotional learning from the beginning. I mean, I think I'm probably one of the lucky ones that remember, get to see the very first presentation from you and kind of seeing this all the way through. So I am a proponent of this and think professional development is a good way for our staff to grow both personally and professionally. But I will say that I am concerned about spending this amount of money for such a few people to fly out of state and to do something that we have so many people here that have already been trained to do. And that's concerning to me, because I want to make sure that the teachers, the people in the classrooms every day that are the ones that are implementing this are the ones that are receiving the benefit of this. And so when I look at the money that we're spending on a yearly basis, and this isn't even all of it, this is just the Title IV funds, that I have some pause with that based on the amount of money that it costs for so few people to partake in that, in this specific training out of state. Melissa, do you have any comments or questions?
I agree with the fact that we need to have professional development. It's very important to sharpen the saw. I mean, that's just an important thing to do. But I also have concerns about this large amount of money we're spending on 3 people. We spend a significant amount of money on conscious discipline, and we really have not been given any information that shows, data-driven information for us, that this is really improving our schools the way we need to see for the amount of money we're spending. So that's really my comments, in that we really need to start seeing some data that shows that this is effective for us to keep spending this amount of money.
Well, I think when you look at our employee engagement surveys and student surveys, to me, that is a component of that. For the children, directly talks about how they feel in their workplace, their satisfaction, do they feel safe, all of those components. And that's a major piece of what conscious discipline is doing, is creating those pieces. The other part that we analyze, of course, is also looking at data in relation to discipline. Of course, like last year was a little wonky, but we'll be getting back on track and analyzing that data this year. We have seen a drastic decrease in discipline issues in the elementary schools since the implementation, and we've seen a drastic change in discipline violations, types of violations in the middle schools compared to what it was when I even stepped in as superintendent. That has changed drastically. So I think we have seen a lot of it. I think we probably just need to keep making sure that we circle back when we're showing the data that we're showing you of how and what components contribute to that data.
Well, there's 2 things I'm going to follow up with that. One, there's a difference between less referrals and actual less discipline problems in school, because feedback I've gotten is that people can't do referrals. And I know I've heard from Megan, like, that's not true. Discipline's a real, like, discipline's still there. I understand that, but I don't know that that always trickles down to staff members. So that's one thing about that. Just because we have less referrals does not necessarily mean we're having less discipline issues. And also, I want to know when we can get some real honest feedback from our staff about what they feel about conscious discipline as a program, because they're the ones that are in the classrooms having to implement it. And I get very different opinions from a lot of different staff members that don't always jive with what I'm hearing from administration. So I would think that we need to definitely look into that some more.
I agree with that. But also just putting a perspective on this, we're not talking about voting down conscious discipline, and whatever has worked is good and it should stay. The question is, as Kim said, enough is enough. I mean, how many more, spending money and going out and having training? And we certainly have a lot of people that have, we've spent money and they've gone and done it. And now they have the skills to pass it on to other people in the district.
And to clarify, you're actually just approving these people to go and travel out of state. Am I correct, Amy? Is it to approve people to be able to travel?
And the cost.
Conference? Yeah.
And
The
estimated
cost was approved in the Title IV grant that was submitted.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I will entertain a motion. Okay. I move to deny the out-of-state travel request as presented.
Do you move to deny? I see. I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving to item 6S, the roving administrator position. Kim, I believe this was yours as well.
Yes, this one is me also. So really, I would just like to hear for my own education, which Superintendent Gunning and I speak on a regular basis, so I know a little bit about this position, but I do feel like transparency is important if we are adding someone who is an administrator in our organization to explain to folks why that's needed and what that person is going to do and how that those tasks are not fulfilled by someone else that we already have on board. So if you could provide some more insight, obviously I can read what's here as far as the job description goes, but if you could tell me a little bit more about what is different from this and why we think this position is needed now.
So we knew that we needed some additional supports in various arenas to one, support administrators if by chance they're off campus, so that there's someone to provide support on the campus during the day or during that time frame of that leader being away. In addition to that, we're also going to utilize this position to offer supports if there is a leader who may need additional assistance or be able to provide opportunity for that leader to go and visit other campuses or to obtain training. A good example might be like, for example, like White Tanks Learning Center, there's no other leader on the campus there for that leader to then leave to attend any meetings or trainings or visit any other campuses during that time. Also to add additional supports if needed for coaching. So when we're looking to hire someone, we're hoping that we'll be able to find somebody with experience. We're looking for an experienced principal, either a retired principal or somebody who's been a principal before. So we would not feel it. This would not be filled with somebody who did not have experience.
And with this person, who do they direct report to? Is that you as the other administrators do?
They would report directly to the executive director of student services. So they
Okay,
report
I'm
to
sorry, that's
Megan.
probably.
Yeah.
I apologize. Okay. So different than the rest of
Right.
the administrators. Okay.
Right. And mainly because she knows exactly where the needs are, probably a little bit more timely. I don't want myself to hold up a delay of like, oh, you should
Yeah,
be over
getting
here.
resources where they need to
Right.
go. No, makes perfect sense. Thank you.
And one follow-up question, this is a temporary position? Because it says here, work calendar assignment will end on May 22nd, 2022. So we're just expecting this to be only for this school year, the
What we
remainder of
wanted-
the school year?
Correct. So what we wanted to do is put it in place this year and then we can analyze basically the effectiveness of it. And if we feel like it's something that we need to continue in future years.
Okay, I will say I do support this position. I'm not a huge supporter of increasing our administrative costs. However, I do recognize that our principals are the same as everyone else, as we heard from transportation employees earlier tonight. Everyone is overworked and underpaid. And so I do think that this will provide some much needed support to our campus administrators.
And stop the issue of sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul, because we have really great employees that are willing to step up, but that means they're doing two jobs instead of one. So I agree. Okay, if there's no more comments or feedback, I will entertain a motion for the new roving administrator position.
I move to approve the new roving administrator position, job description and salary placement chart as presented.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 7A, designate difficult and hazardous routes and authorization to provide school bus transportation for students per policy EEAA, walkers and riders. Megan Duplain will be presenting this evening.
Members of the governing board, we are bringing to you our hazardous routes list for you to approve. Basically, these are areas that we have deemed that are hazardous for children to cross, even though they are less than 2 miles from school. This, the last time we brought this to you, I believe, was the year before last. We have added one additional one recently, and that is Village Grove neighborhood under Verado Elementary School. But these are our zones that we have deemed, due to high volume of traffic and speed, that it is unsafe for our children to cross, and regardless if they are below the 2 miles, we will be transporting them.
Okay. I have a quick question for you. These students are being contacted directly because they're sort of within the 2 miles, but out of the other zone. So that'll all be worked out individually with the students.
We have never stopped transportation for them.
Okay.
We're updating you on this list, letting you know, or asking for approval of this current list, and then the addition of the Verado Crossings one.
Okay, perfect. Any questions? Okay, I move that we approve the revision to policy EEAA walkers and riders based on the hazardous routes as presented.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 7B, fiscal year 2021 annual financial report. I believe that is, yes, Mrs. Wendy Qualls again.
Okay,
Oh,
thank
there
you,
we go.
Madam President, members of the governing board. So tonight I have for you our annual financial report for last school year. So the timeline for completion is that the report would need to be approved by October 15th and submitted to Department of Education. And then by November 15th, it needs to be published. But once it's updated to Department of Ed, it's on their website. So it will be published as soon as it's uploaded. It's also posted on our district website under the Business Services webpage. So maintenance and operations, our total budget was $76.7 million. We expended $67.7 million. 87.9% of that was in salaries and benefits. So that's around a $9 million difference between our budget and actual expenditures. Normally, we do try to carry forward $6 to $7 million. So it is a little higher, but that occurred for a few reasons. We had many job positions unfilled last year. And also with school, kids not in school all that time, we had savings on substitutes, facilities, utilities, just general savings across the board. Our classroom site funds, just under $9 million budget, and $6 million is what we actually spent. When classroom site funds began over 20 years ago, we had a year reserve. Currently, we're down to about a half a year. And 100% of that is for teachers. Base pay, 100% salary and benefits. So it's teachers' base pay and performance pay, and then 2 instructional assistants at each campus. Current expenditures by category is similar to the report that the Auditor General will do in March, the classroom spending report. So for classroom expenditures, 53 million out of 787.5, so 60.6% directly into the classroom. Administration is 8.9%. Instructional staff 4.1, so that is our trainings and our coaches. And then maintenance and operations, $9.5 million for 10.9%. Non-instructional, which would be food service and community education, 2.4 million, 2.8% of the total. Students, so nurses, attendants, student advisors, $8 million, 9.2%. And then transportation, 3 million for 3.5%. That's pretty consistent with past years. Our capital outlay fund, otherwise known as DAA, the budget was 16.7 million. We spent just under 4 million. This fund, we do reserve funds for future years for transportation, buses, large maintenance issues for facilities. And then also we just look, this is one of the first funds that are cut if there's a budget issue. So we just try to make sure we have a couple years to keep our technology and things going. Adjacent ways, 626,000 was budgeted. There were no expenditures. Those funds were there for white tanks and we're just now kept starting the planning for that. So you may see some expenditures in the current year for adjacent ways. Debt service. So this is paying our investors back where we had talked about we sold bonds to investors. This is the payments back to them. The budget was 6.4 and we spent 6.4. Bond building. So the expenditures in the bond building in the current year were $100,000. So that was the White Tanks Learning Center, some planning, and then also the bond issuance costs for that last issue. Our beginning balance was 1.4 million and the bond proceeds were just over 7 million. Food service. So 48% of their expenditures, 1.7 million, were for salary and benefits. Supplies at 1.2 million at 34%, and then other costs for a total of 3.6 million. They started out the year with 1.7 million, total revenues of 3.3, so they had 5 million to spend. Community education. Community education is really one fund. We choose to split it out and track our preschool and extended day just to see how each program's running. And remember, the last couple of years have been really tough on community education. So we had the closure in the spring of the previous year, then last year, we weren't able to operate many of the months. So our preschool started with a deficit of 543,000. They brought in just under 600,000. So meaning they would have 52,000 available and we spent 1.2. The preschool program has certified teachers previously. So they were under contract. We had to retain them. So we continued to pay those employees. Extended day started with 2.3 million. They had 438,000 in revenue. So a total of 2.8 million available. And they spent 1.186. Again, the majority of their costs are salaries and benefits. So COVID-19 funding. We had stabilization funds, which was one of the first governor's grants of 4.8 million. 4.2 million of that is salaries and benefits because the intent of that was to retain our current staff when we had such a large decrease in our student population and a large budget decrease. ESSER 1, 732,000. Some of that was salary and benefits with the planning for the opening of last school year. And then other supplies that we needed throughout the year. ESSER 2, 195,000. Again, salaries, benefits, and some supplies. We did receive childcare through the Department of Economic Security that was intended for preschool. So some of preschool's expenditures actually are over here in the COVID funds to retain those teachers. Do you have any questions?
You answered most of my questions during the presentation, but my real question now becomes, as the board and as Superintendent Gunning or the other leaders of the district determine that a new position is needed, or we need new software for our data tracking and availability, or we need to implement a permanent increase for bus drivers. Where is the wiggle room for us to be able to fulfill those requests, because historically we have run extremely lean. And I think we need to fatten up a little bit or maybe a lot. And I'm not sure how the board will be able to know what funding is available. You know, I guess for me, I'm really frustrated with where we are. And it seems like we have carryover and we have rainy day funds that maybe we should be spending, but I don't know that I know the entire picture. And by spending, I don't mean spend all of it, but I mean, look at our long-term goals, not only the learning loss that we're currently dealing with, but beyond that, to get us to a place that we want to get to on a more strategic level versus constantly putting out fires. And I think there's a few things that are going to go into that. Part of that is looking at our systems that are in place. For example, the data system that Inform that we've used for 15 years maybe, or some long amount that is clearly way overdue to be updated. I want us to be able to, as a board, look at those systems and know what our financial options are to be able to update those and actually improve what we have in place right now. So it's hard for me to know what those numbers are based on this presentation. I know this presentation is done because it has to be done. It's a requirement, and it is very, I guess, meaningful and does provide transparency into how the funds are spent. But sometimes it's difficult to boil down that information. So maybe that isn't exactly a question, but I guess my question really is, how do we know what is available, what's not already earmarked?
So we can plan for that in future meetings to provide that information as you have
Okay.
things presented.
Okay, so in a future meeting, someone will break that down for us to say, okay, in the capital outlay fund, we have 16 million budgeted, we spent 3.8 million. So, you know, right now there's 12 million, I guess, in there that's unaccounted for, or then we can discuss what's been earmarked out of that or what hasn't been earmarked out of that. I just feel like we're not utilizing our funds to actually obtain our goals. And so I'd like to talk about that more. So however we would like to do that, I guess maybe add that to an agenda item for a study session or a regular board meeting in the future would be much appreciated.
So probably a study session.
Yeah, I agree. I think because I think it's two parts, what you're saying, and I'll clarify and you tell me if I'm right or wrong. I think 50% of it is financial and what we can actually support, but I think 50% of it is that long-term planning piece that we have traditionally, because we've run so lean, we've been really proud of the fact that through thick and thin, we've been okay because we have the rainy day fund, we carry over properly, we do all of the things that have left us where we are today, which is in a really great spot. So we haven't traditionally looked at some of those big picture items because we have thought that we couldn't afford them. And now we're getting to the point where it seems like we maybe can't live without them or can't be as successful as we want to be without them. So I think when planning that study session, it's part of it is financially and how we're going to pay for it. But the other part is what are those long-term goals that we haven't put into these numbers because we've just always run really lean. And now we're feeling the hurt of that, I guess, if you want to say that. So is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
Okay. I know we have some study sessions already planned. Do you have a specific timeline in mind? I know our budgeting, obviously, cycle starts again in the spring. I believe our next two study sessions are planned, but we can make sure that happens before the spring timeframe so we can plan.
Yeah, I mean, I would want to allow time for, obviously Wendy and Jody to have those conversations that might need to happen previous to that. So yeah, I don't have a strict time frame in mind. I just would like for us to, I guess it's always kind of sooner rather than later, have those conversations because it takes time. As we're talking now, adopting new math curriculum takes time. Implementing a new data system is going to take time. And it seems like the more time it takes for us to have the conversations and make the big picture decisions, the longer we're kicking that can down the road to actually see the fruits of our labor. And so I don't want to put undue pressure or untimely constraints on the district because I understand that there's work involved with this. But yeah, at your earliest convenience, I don't know, that's probably.
Yeah, I'm just saying, just to be able to impact the next budgeting cycle, we'd have to do it in the spring. So that's really the only time constraint, is that we'd have to be able to do it, as we're making those plans moving forward. I agree with you that we don't want to put undue workload on the district. However, I am hopeful and have faith in Jody and her team that there are long-term goals in place that, whether it might not be specifically what bucket of money they're coming from, but as a district, we have some of these long-term goals already there. I think we just need to identify them and start to assign them to budgeting buckets as a board, if that's appropriate. Okay, we will leave that up to the district staff to plan that accordingly. Does anyone have any other questions on these figures for the financial report?
I just think that in terms of what we were talking about, what Kim brought up is I thought it was sort of based on our technology and stuff like that. The one thing we really got going for it is as things become obsolete, they're replaced with things that cost pennies on the dollar. It's just getting cheaper and cheaper to the point right now where it's almost negligible, and so much stuff is going into the cloud and whatever rather than discrete hardware. So it's almost getting to the point where it's not even significant.
Okay. If there's no other questions or comments, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the fiscal year 2021 annual financial report as presented.
I second. Okay, thank you. There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Wendy. The last is the second reading and adoption of revisions to several policies. I won't read them all here. This is the second read. These were ones that were presented at the last meeting as well.
I'm just here to answer questions. You have them.
Okay, as I mentioned, these were the same from our first reading. It looks like there was no revisions to this. From my memory and notes, there were no questions last time on these or requests for changes. So I will open the floor for conversation or questions if there are any. If not, we can make a motion.
No questions.
No feedback? Okay, I move that we approve the second reading and adoption of the policies as recommended. I second. Okay. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We do not have anything on our information and discussion items this evening, so we'll move right on to our reports with Superintendent Gunning.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the governing board. A few things to mention is that, just a reminder, we included all of our principals' names and their emails as it is National Principals Month. So if you think of opportunities that you would like to send out, which I already saw one this morning or today, it's a great time to recognize our leaders. An update on learning recovery updates, and we've added this topic to the agenda, just kind of like we did the COVID updates from this point forward. The governor's grant is still pending approval. So we're waiting for additional information to receive back from him or his office. Edgenuity is up and running. Our behavior techs for our care rooms All have been hired except for one school, so we're doing a good job in setting those up. ESSER 3 grant was sent back for some revisions, so we're in the process of revising that grant as well. John Scudder is taking the lead on tutoring to ensure that we have consistency across the district in relation to tutoring, so it's not just random tutoring that's happening. Math specialists and math coach job descriptions is what you were approved tonight in preparation for the upcoming year. And also attended with board member Honak and board member Zaidama, the Verado Heritage School Showcase. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to our board reports. Jeremy, do you want to start us off?
Well, it was nice going on the showcase. I had a lot, it was very educational. I want to look at some other dimensions of schools that, but that's about it.
Okay, great, thank you. Kim?
Sure. I would like to start out by apologizing for not attending the meeting on September 28th or the candidate forum on the 30th or the Verado Heritage School Showcase. I was very disappointed to miss those. I did, however, watch both of the governing board meetings. Well, one was a meeting, one was a presentation on YouTube. Unfortunately, I was battling a case of breakthrough COVID that has proved significantly more challenging than I expected. Thankfully, I'm on mend, but I encourage everyone to follow the science and get vaccinated, or if fully vaccinated, get a booster shot as soon as you are eligible. Since the last meeting, I have had time to thoughtfully consider one of the biggest roles of being a governing board member, and that role is fiscal responsibility. If it hasn't already been evident, I have a specific interest and conviction, if you will, regarding our current learning loss and related funding, the ESSER 3 funds and the governor's grant. I want to be transparent about how LESD is tackling learning loss with a detailed data-driven plan and updates along the way. This is important for accountability to all parties involved, especially parents and students. So I'm taking this opportunity to be clear and make known my request per board policy BEDBA to include a learning loss and related spending progress report or update at every monthly regular governing board meeting agenda between November 2021 and August 2023. I'd actually like to update that, I guess, till August 2024, in this case, since those funds are going to go all the way through 2024. The funds must be spent by May 2024, but will not have the standardized test scores back in hand until August of 2024 to evaluate the effectiveness of our actions in mitigating the learning loss. I look forward to working with district administration to provide increased transparency and accountability, which are non-negotiable aspects to provide and prove fiscal responsibility of a public school district. I would also like to take this opportunity to remind everyone to return your ballot as soon as possible and exercise your right to vote in the override continuation issue that is on the ballot, the election day coming up here in a couple of short weeks. Finally, I would like to wish everyone well entering the second quarter of the school year. I'm very pleased that despite my personal story related to COVID, that LESD's COVID mitigation strategies have proven effective to maintain in-person learning, and that for those who have had to quarantine, remote learning has come a long way from where we were in March of 2020. I'm grateful to everyone who is a piece of this education puzzle: students, parents, teachers, aides, food service, transportation, for your grace, perseverance, and continued commitment to student success. We are still standing. And so I will end my report with a quote from the song, "I'm Still Standing" by Elton John. Don't you know I'm still standing better than I ever did, looking like a true survivor, feeling like a little kid. I'm still standing after all this time. I'm still standing. Yeah. Melissa?
Thank you, Kim.
I always have to go after Kim and she's got like quotes and it's all great. So September actually was a little calmer than some other months have been. I was able to go to the showcase at Verado Heritage, which was awesome. My son actually was an 8th grader there when they first opened, so I don't think I've actually been there since then. And so it was nice to see all that they had done and the student artwork they have up on the walls and how they've beautified the campus and made it very their own campus. And I loved seeing that. And I especially love seeing the Leader in Me and how it's implemented there. I've been a fan of that program since we were looking at it at Scott Libby before they even opened Heritage. So I love seeing how that was implemented and hearing from Jody that maybe other campuses are looking into implementing it as well, which makes me very excited because I think it's a fantastic program. I also attended our study session where we learned about conscious discipline and we got a huge presentation about special ed, which was amazing. And they probably could have talked for hours and hours and hours more because there's so much that goes into special education. And God bless all those people that have that heart for teaching special education students because it is a difficult job and they do it with so much love and passion. And it's amazing to see that. And I loved hearing all the things that we're doing. And then I also attended the governing board candidate forum. That was nice to hear from our 3 candidates that showed up. I was sad to see that not everybody was able to come, but it was good for us to hear from the 3 that did show up. And I feel excited to see who we're going to get on this board in the future. That's exciting. And then lastly, I just wanted to say as a final thing, just a small shout out to Rancho Santa Fe, because I have kids that go to multiple campuses. I've had the opportunity to be a parent of students that have gone to very many different campuses in our district, but 2 things about Rancho Santa Fe that have made me very happy this year because we're new to the school. One, they have that drop-off line in the morning down perfectly. They get cars moving. They don't stop the cars every 10 seconds to let people walk across the street. The parents are trained, but like, I don't know, the parents, they listen. Some parents don't like to listen, but they've got it down there and I love it because it moves very efficiently. And they've got music playing. So my kid's always dancing while we're walking in, and they've got students out with signs, welcome to our campus. So it gets everybody excited. And the second thing that I love, that I've loved since the beginning of the year, is that their staff has been very, very good at being role models for their students about wearing masks. They have masks on when the kids show up in the morning, and that's the first thing they see is everybody outside has a mask on. And I know that you don't have to wear one outside, but when students see it as they're coming in the door, it's an example to them to wear it. And I think that's why we've seen very low numbers of students opting out on that campus, because we have very low numbers of staff members that have opted out there. And I think it's really important that we, as the adults, are the role models for the students. So I've appreciated how they have taken that on and that they have shown that example for our students.
Thank you, Melissa. I will try and keep my board report short. I know we are already past the 8 o'clock hour. I was able to attend. I know we talked a lot about professional development today, both in recognizing our board members for doing that, as well as at the school level. ASBA provides us access to different webinars and things like that. So I've learned about the reporting requirements of all of these ESSER funds, which are intense, and the staff does an amazing job of keeping track of all of that. Also the do's and don'ts of school district ballot issues. Obviously, we have something on the ballot as the other school districts this year, so learning about that is always interesting. We had a wonderful study session, as someone mentioned, on conscious discipline and special education. Thank you to Melissa McComb and Megan Duplain for leading that. I know Megan had a slew of people. I couldn't name all of them, but thank you for putting that together. It's always really great, not only for the board to either learn that for the first time or to just re-up their knowledge, but also for parents and community members to hear that information and how our departments are run. I wanted to say thank you specifically to our school board candidate forum, or excuse me, our candidates and the staff for helping put together the forum. I know it's been a few years now since we've done that, or since we've needed to do that. I know it's extra work on the staff's part and, you know, kind of corralling everyone together, but I thought it was a great opportunity for the community and parents and everyone to hear what potential board members have to say and what their interest is in being here and all of that. So I appreciate everyone that was involved, especially to Superintendent Steve Watson and members of his staff that actually joined us here in person with his wife, no less. So thank you very much for that. I also wanted to say happy National Principals Month. We have a lot of dedicated principals and assistant principals on our campuses that do a fantastic job. And as we've mentioned from many different people, they are overworked and underpaid, but highly appreciated. So thank you for all that you do for our school district and for our students. And just wanted to say, hope everyone had a wonderful fall break. They are refreshed and rejuvenated and coming back to really hit it hard until we break for Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's going to go fast. So anyway, thank you very much to everyone. Thank you also, just as we move on to 9C for the reports from our administrators. Thank you as always for putting those department level and school level reports together. We appreciate hearing and seeing what is going on your campus and in your departments. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
I will second. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion